Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, John Connor, C-O-N-N-O-R. I, for about 20 plus years, was the chief of the Special Prosecutions Unit of the Attorney General's office. But I'm here today as a private citizen to voice my support for this bill. And I apologize to those of you, Chairman Peterson, Representative Kearns, who have heard, got your attention. Heard my testimony before. I just am not creative enough to come up with anything new. But during my time with the Attorney General's office and in 6 years as county attorney before that, I prosecuted more homicide cases than I can remember. And 5 of those cases were death penalty cases. They were all prison homicide cases where an inmate had killed others in the prison. And in every homicide case I prosecuted, whether it was a death penalty case or not, I tried to point out to the jury the one element in a homicide that we almost always take for granted and don't talk very much about when we're doing our arguments to the jury at the end of a trial, and that is that we are in the courtroom because a human being died. That's the definition of homicide, purposely or knowingly causing the death of a human being. And so I tried to make the jury aware that we were there really because we respected human life. We revered it, we nurture it, we protect it, we hold it sacred above all else. When someone takes human life, then we respond to hold that person accountable with laws that we have also nurtured, protected, and supported for generations. And then in death penalty cases, a month or 2 or 3 later, I would come back before the court and I would ask the court to take the life of the person who had taken another life. And after doing this several times and after having been put in the position of having to call the prison at midnight on the day that someone was due to be killed in 2 instances because the Attorney General was out of state, and saying, go ahead and put the person to death, there is no legal issue pending that would prevent the execution from happening. And then I started to think about the hypocrisy of my position, the fact that I am talking about the value of human life while I'm at the same time asking that our government, through a lengthy, almost ceremonial process, and there is a certain ceremony to it, I can assure you. They have a script that they go through when they take the person over to the death trailer. It's beyond my comprehension how we can be that inconsistent in our view of things. It just doesn't seem, it seems to be exalting form over substance, if you will, and it's incongruous that we respect life so much that we're going to dedicate all of our resources for 20 plus years to take somebody's life because they did. I've always known that the death penalty was not a deterrent. I know one of the opponents to this bill and the other in the Senate said that Jesus would be opposed to this bill. And I thought to myself, well, you know, I'm a Christian, or close to it, Irish Catholic, and but I don't have the training to know what Jesus would think. But I do have 35 years of exposure in the criminal justice system to people who commit horrific crime, both as a defense lawyer and as a prosecutor. And I can tell you, they don't think like we do. The death penalty, or even penalties of any sort, aside from my view, is the DUI things that you're considering do act as deterrents for people that may have a drink or 2 too many. But when people are talking about homicide, they don't think in terms of punishment, and it's not a deterrent, and I could give you graphic examples if we had time. Plea bargaining is almost never an issue. It certainly isn't in prison homicide cases because the inmates won't admit to anything. And so we never had a situation where we could have exchanged the death penalty for life without parole, except in one case of Mr. Dan Johnson, who got the death penalty. It was a case I prosecuted, and because of legal errors, we allowed him to withdraw his plea, and he pled to life without parole, and we've not heard another word about it. But the case was going to the Ninth Circuit and probably would have been reversed otherwise. I think there are ethical problems, and some prosecutors might disagree with me, when you use the death penalty as a plea bargaining tool and you're not willing to commit to going forward with it and carrying it out. There are rules of ethics that I think make that inappropriate. We have no way to report the cost of this. The only time when I was in the Attorney General's office that I think we ever did try to track the cost of lawyer time was in the case of Duncan McKenzie, and then only in the short time right before he was put to death. But as the sponsor said, this is an horrific cost, and there's just no way that we can justify, I don't think, from a public policy position, the amount of money that we have to spend when somebody says, I'm going for the death penalty. So I concluded for my part, ladies and gentlemen, that after looking at the fiscal, the moral, the legal, and the practical aspects of this, we just don't need this. We are better than those people are. Aren't we better than they are? We don't need to put somebody to death because they did something that we consider horrific, and of course the crimes are horrific beyond belief. But let's show them that we're better than they are. We're going to put you over here and lock you up until you die because you have demonstrated you can't live among other people, because we respect human life.